Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the profit and the nonprofit community, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This KC Care segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation, www.kaufman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggis. It's that favorite time of year again when Kansas Cityans get to enjoy eating at hundreds of premier local restaurants and help local charities at the same time. It's Kansas City Restaurant Week that this year is January 14th through the 22nd, when for 10 days you can feast, eating at various places with special rates. Put on by Greater Kansas City Restaurant Association and Visit KC, it takes a tremendous effort to make all of this happen. Well, here to unpack all of this is Jenny Wilson, who's Vice President of Partnerships and Events for Visit KC, and Merideth Rose. She is the CEO of Cornerstones of Care, one of this year's charity recipients. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
It's such a delicious conversation we will have. No pun intended.
I'm hungry already.
Jenny, I want to start with you representing Visit KC and talk a little bit about how you're part of a restaurant week.
Sure, thanks. So this all started in 2010, so 13 years ago already. And the original concept was to give restaurants that time in January when things are typically slow. So to help drive business to those restaurants. So it was really Visit KC and the Greater Kansas City Restaurant Association that kind of came together and developed this event. And then one of the cornerstones of this, of course, was the charity component to it. That was part of it right from the beginning of the inception.
So I know when you started, there weren't quite so many restaurants, and it was like this new thing to Kansas City, although I think it was happening probably on the coasts and kind of trickled in. Can you share what those early days were like and maybe how you've moved forward into this gargantuan event?
Sure. No, you're correct. It was very popular on the coast in Chicago, but we brought it here into the Midwest, into Kansas City. And yeah, when we started, we had under 100 restaurants that participated. It was a new concept for Kansas City, so it just kind of grew over time. This year, we're up over 200 different restaurants. We've got 29 new restaurants this year, and over 40 minority and women-owned restaurants participating. They are kind of competing for guests, but so we're really excited for that this year. Probably the biggest evolution has been over the last 2 or 3 years with the takeout component and the delivery component. You know, of course, during COVID, everything changed, and that really kind of taught us how to pivot. We didn't want to cancel it because we knew it was so important for those restaurants. And as Kansas City does, they showed up and really supported those restaurants. But that's probably been the biggest changes. We've gone ahead and kept that delivery and carryout component. It was really popular.
Well, that's great. That means if we multiplied 3 meals a day, maybe added a snack, midday, evening, late night, you might get close to the, well, you probably wouldn't get close to 200. But what an opportunity. When it all started, was there a charity part to this?
Yes, there's always been the charity component to it. That was really important from the very beginning, that we had that charity component to it. As you know, Kansas City is such a philanthropy city, and it made sense to add that part to it. And really, that's kind of what sets this restaurant week apart from many across our peers across the country, is that charity component that goes along with it.
We were in New York City in the last year, and I noticed that they had a restaurant week, and I kept looking for the charities, and it was like, no. But I guess part of your motivation, though, was also helping restaurants.
Absolutely. You know, if you think about it, that January timeframe is always typically the slowest for restaurants. You know, you've come off the holidays, you're out of New Year. In Kansas City, maybe the weather's not always the best. So this really helps drive those restaurants' business into those restaurants when they need it the most.
Why was it so important in the beginning that charity be part of it?
The give back component. We wanted to do something that would give back to the community. The community supports us so much, us being the hospitality industry, that this was a way that we could give back to them.
Well, it gives back around the waistline, but I understand your point of view. It's like you have to plan your diet not for the post holidays, but for the post restaurant week.
That's right.
Keep that in mind. Well, Meredith, I want to turn to you a minute. I want you to talk about how Cornerstones of Care got involved with Restaurant Week. It's a little different from your normal mission.
It is. And, I'm so excited, being from Kansas City and, often Kansas City is referred to as the heart of the nation, and a lot of good, a lot of innovation. As Jenny said, philanthropic efforts, and the heartbeat lives here in Kansas City. So it is not foreign that there's a important charity component to Kansas City's Restaurant Week. And so we are so excited to be the beneficiary of the 2023 Restaurant Week charity focus. We've had a longstanding partnership with Visit KC and the Kansas City Chamber. And so we just have great connections and networks, whether that be through our board of directors and the volunteers that make up our governance, as well as our council members. And we have well over thousands of volunteers every year that support our organization in everything we do, from gifting at Christmas, which we just finished and complete from 2022, the last holiday season, to making sure that kiddos have school supplies and are well supported going back to school in the fall. So there's such a rich network of supporters, not only around our agency that allowed us to find this opportunity, but get plugged into being a beneficiary for 2023's Restaurant Week. So we are thrilled, we are honored, we are blessed, and we know that we will reap not only the fruit rewards and good food, but some of the harvest that will go back to supporting the kids and the families that we serve every single day.
Jenny, let me ask you this. Do you have open season for nonprofits to apply to be the recipient organization, or how does this all work? It may have changed over the years.
Sure. That's a great question. We typically will send out an RFP announcement in the spring, and we will pick a charity for 2 years. It's a bit of a process. We go ahead and award a charities 2 years out, and there's a couple of criteria that have to go along with that. As Meredith mentioned, it's really that component within the community, but it's the community within both sides of the state line. So both the Kansas and the Missouri side, because our restaurants fall within both sides of the state line. And then they need to have that food component to it. Clearly what Cornerstones of Care does, it's amazing work that they do, and the families that they take care of and the kids they take care of. So nutrition and the culinary aspect for them is extremely important. So it was a great match, and that's kind of one of those things that we look for. We had Guadalupe Center was last year along those same lines. They do so much for our community food wise. But yeah, our next RFP process will come out in this following spring for we're into 24 and 25 already. So
it won't be the spring of 23, but it would be the spring of 24.
Will be the next one. So we'll put out the RFP in 23 for the 24 season. Yeah.
Gotcha. I was a little off on the years there. So nonprofits, if you're tuned in, get your calendars marked for spring of 23, because you don't want to miss an opportunity to jump in there and see if you can reap what is sown over Restaurant Week. Meredith, I wanted to ask you to share with us the breadth and depth of Cornerstones of Care. As I was prepping, wow. Yeah. You're doing all kinds of things, but I'd love to hear you share with us all you're doing.
Absolutely. So I'll give you a high level just introduction for those who are unfamiliar with our agency. We've been around for more than 150 plus years. We are a behavioral health nonprofit organization. We provide trauma-informed care to children and families, as Jenny said, on both sides of the state line, so Kansas and Missouri and beyond now. Our services include a variety and array of trauma-informed supports, from therapy to providing tools and education and resources to educators in schools. We support with foster care and adoption on both sides of the state, as well as do counseling and all kinds of trauma-informed community-based supports for children and families and neighborhoods. We serve approximately, and sometimes a little bit more than 15,000 children and families every single year. But ultimately, our mission and we exist to help children live safe, productive, healthy, nonviolent lives. The connection to the culinary piece and how our application was selected for this year. Food seems to be the common denominator, obviously, for Restaurant Week, but it's such an important therapeutic component for our agency as well. So within our program, we have what's called the Build Tribe Culinary Program. And so Build Tribe is one of our programs in which we teach job skills to some of our youth in 3 core areas: in building trades, in culinary, and in horticulture. We have youth clients, if you will, who are actually functioning as apprentices, so they get paid for their work, and they also develop skills that one day hopefully will get them a job. We call our Build Tribe program a bridge that connects youth, particularly those who lack that stable support system to opportunity. One thing I love about this program and the connection to Restaurant Week is that we teach and really embody cooking as a life skill. So we think about last year, just tangibly, we harvested more than a ton of fruits and vegetables from our gardens on 2 of our campuses, our Gillis and our Ozanam campus. So for all of our math geniuses, that's more than 2,260 pounds of fruits and vegetables. Then what happens with that produce is that it is used to cook meals with our residents who reside on our Ozanam campus. But the great thing about the program is that the youth who come to us, they participate in these culinary classes. They're matched with coaches, with mentors, with staff who actually have a profession or have a love of cooking and culinary arts. They do these informal cooking opportunities, but they learn to cook as a life skill as they go on and hopefully graduate when we have supported them and they're ready to branch out on their own to be interdependent in society. I never like to say independent, because truly none of us live in isolation and in desolation. You know, you see this research, this thought process that healing happens around food at a table. Relationships are built, connections are built. And so for many of our children, the act of cooking, of coming together, being proud of something they made, it really has a real therapeutic value. And it's all encompassing. They give, they develop a love of service, they develop a love of creation and cultivation, and ultimately they give back what they have grown and what has been sown into them. So cooking and that food idea really rings true for our Build Tribe program. And again, it's just one of the many, many things that we do to serve those 15,000 kiddos every year.
What an amazing marriage.
Yes.
Food with kindness and
Yes.
education and lifting up. I love that.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about Ozanam and Gillis and how all of Cornerstones, it came from another place, and it seems like the organization has kind of morphed and become this huge, wonderful thing.
Yes. Absolutely. So our history, as I mentioned, goes back well over 150 years. And we originally were founded by a women's Christian group through the Gillis campus several years ago after the Civil War to provide supports to children and women who found themselves separated or in orphanages after the Civil War. So families were separated and pulled apart. And there was really a coalition around Kansas City of several organizations who were serving youth at different life cycles, ages, and focus areas. There were 5 individual organizations at one time, but essentially we're doing a lot of the same work, or either we're overlapping. And so as our history evolved, those 5 locations who independently served a respective either population or focus in trauma-informed care or behavioral health eventually merged and came together in a strategic consolidation in 2017. So almost 6 years now, we have been operating as one Cornerstones of Care. We have well over 15 different geographic locations, more than 700 staff. So while we've evolved and expanded, we've been really strategic and smart about being responsive to how our youth need supportive care, how and where they heal. So that traditional idea of an orphanage and facility, while we still have residential care at our Ozanam campus, we find that foster care homes are really the best and most ideal places for children to come, to find healing, to find therapy and supports, and again, build that resilience and that recovery for a lasting, viable life. And so we continue to evolve in a way that hopefully is child-centered, that is person-centered, that's research-based, but that puts us in communities where we're needed the most. Again, we exist to create that safety, that coalition, that kind of community-based partnership, not just in isolation, but with those community-based resources around us. So
that was a terrific explanation. I had remembered, that it was merge and all of that. And we applaud you for everybody having come to the table and said, let's be one together and serve even more. And I love that you got the food component in there. I'm waiting for you. Are you going to open your restaurant next year? So you'll be the 202nd restaurant?
I have to tell you, I inherited this team and this fabulous organization just 6 months ago in July. And you mentioned the history, and my predecessor, Denise Cross, had been here 15 years. So there's a rich legacy of really just evolving and growing the organization to be what it is today. It's amazing, the minds and the creativity and the innovation of how our team is brainstorming where we can be present. One of the things we rolled out under my leadership and our new team is this idea of the 3 Ps, and it starts with people, purpose, and presence. So even these partnerships like what we're celebrating with Restaurant Week, and while it gives back to us monetarily, it's so important that people grow to understand who we are, what we do, and how we can impact their personal lives, their employees' lives, the continuity of the organizations. Most likely, if it involves social emotional health, we have something we can support you with. We can help your organization or business. So our hope, who knows? I mean, we've got Build Tribes component in the building trades. They make cutting boards, which I'm sure that probably Jenny has one and other people have. So there's so many things that I think 10 years ago, we probably never would have imagined we'd be doing, yet here we are. And that's responsible. That's trauma-informed. That's person-centered, child-centered growth and innovation at its best.
That's terrific. Jenny, can you share with us a little bit about the Visit KC Foundation, another one of the recipients of Restaurant Weeks?
Sure. So, before I even go down there, I think, when we look at our partners for outside of the restaurant association and us, I mean, Merideth just hit it on the nose. People probably know Cornerstones of Care, but they may not know the depth of everything they do. So hopefully we can help educate maybe an audience that isn't as familiar with, and those partnerships just continue to grow outside of Restaurant Week and the support they can receive outside of Restaurant Week. And it's a dual support. I mean, they've got a culinary program. Everybody knows that the hospitality industry is short-staffed. So wouldn't it be fabulous if, we can kind of continue that growth and look towards the future and see if maybe some of those students that have gone through her program can then continue on through one of our restaurants. So that's what just gets me excited and warms my heart and does all that stuff and makes all the hard work worth it, is when you can look at the partnerships you're developing and what can come about just from simply eating together and dining together. So. And then, yes, the Visit KC Foundation is one of the recipients, along with the Greater Kansas City Restaurant Association's foundation. I can talk specifically about ours, of course, but really kind of the focus of ours is just on that tourism component. We really, workforce development is a large thing. So we've kind of focused on some of those scholarships that we can provide for students who are looking to enter college, into our culinary program. And that's really kind of where we see how we can kind of help the community at this point and help our constituent, those that help us succeed, is that workforce development.
Well, I hope the P word is behind us. Everybody knows what the big P is. So what is the sense, Jenny, I'll let you go first, of kind of where hospitality, culinary, all of that, where are we at?
That's a great question. It's, tourism itself, especially domestic tourism, has come back with just this force that I think took everybody a little bit by surprise. We kind of were pent up in our homes for quite a while. And the second you could get out, it came back fast and furious. And, we went from here to here in a few months. So I think the growth is there. I think there's always going to be some pains along with that growth again. But if you look at what's coming into Kansas City, we've got the NFL draft coming in April. So it'll put Kansas City on a national stage. And then, you look at 2026 with the World Cup, that'll put us on an international stage. Such an exciting time to be a part of the hospitality community. I think it's only going to help drive some of those individuals into our industry. It's a fun industry.
Yeah.
And what are you seeing, Meredith, in terms of even more families coming to you, how kiddos even get into this tribe program?
Yeah, absolutely. And even, if you think about our role in tourism and the world kind of opening back up, if you will, I like to refer to Cornerstones of Care as mission support. There's some critical fundamental services. There's infrastructure, there's city, there's restaurant, there's tourism. There's a lot of things that have to happen to allow people to feel safe and comfortable, coming back together again. And so you think about what we endured during the pandemic, and in many cases, a lot of folks are relearning how to re-socialize again. You think about some of the youth who were actually born during the pandemic and are entering school here in a few, couple of years. And so if I think about what Cornerstones of Care does and really helping not only youth specifically, but families develop a sense of community, of connection, of language, of education, of tools and resources, we can support a youth and a family at almost any point in their journey in their life cycle. So everything from preventative to intervention, to supporting some of those vulnerable youth, as we would say, who perhaps they don't have a long-standing or faithful or continuous parental guardian support in their life. The Build Tribe program, our transitional living program, is designed to receive those youth. Some of them are in actual foster care case management. Some are what we call unaccompanied, and they are on their own as independent youth. But the idea is they have a place of safety, of common language, of shared empathy, where they can intersect with a caring adult, with a team of individuals. And they have the time, they have the grace, and they have the opportunity to really evaluate what they want out of life. Some of our kiddos, they choose culinary and they didn't realize they even had a love for cooking. Some kiddos came just knowing that the best food in the world is boxed macaroni and cheese. But because they had this intersection and this exposure to what is grown in the earth, and they can see that their hands, their heart, their brain can go into developing something more and greater that they never could imagine. That is life-changing. And literally that's seed planting for that youth and their future. So I like to have and tell our team courageous conversations about what's possible. A lot of times, whether it's a business, a nonprofit, an educator, a team of people, they don't realize how they can impact and influence a youth, either as an individual or as a team. So there's always opportunities to plug into Cornerstones of Care. Giving and Restaurant Week is obviously our focus for today, but coming alongside a youth, being a cooking mentor. If you're not so much of a cook, maybe you want to read to a group of students, or maybe you want to be a big brother or big sister to a foster care teenager that is in our care. So there's always opportunities. I think post-pandemic, if we're there, is a great time to be curious about where I can give more and give back. But again, there's always a way to plug in, and we will find room for you at the table for sure.
All right, we're going to let you plug in and give us your website, because I guess that would be the best way to get to you, right?
Absolutely. So to find Cornerstones of Care, you can go to www, if we still say that anymore, .cornerstonesofcare.org, O-R-G. And there you will find all that you need to about our mission, what we do, opportunities to plug in, to give, to donate, to volunteer. Again, there's always a helpful hand and voice behind those emails. We would be glad to follow up and partner with you in 2023.
Jenny, give us a sense of how much has been raised over the years through Restaurant Week, because I'm sure the nonprofits count on getting it.
Sure. Over the last 13 years, just over $3 million. We're at about $3.3 million is what's been raised.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. And so from Visit KC's, vantage point, how significant is that for like the scholarship funds that you give out? Is it a big chunk of your overall budget for that?
Absolutely. It's our largest driver for our foundation too. So yeah, extremely important.
Well, I don't know. I think maybe you should have a Restaurant Week like the end of April.
Oh,
with
no.
the draft.
Just keep it going. Well, every quarter.
It's a lot of work.
And so how do you go about doing that? So many of us in the nonprofit world, should we do a big, how do you do that? How do you start and keep something like that going?
I think there is a committee. So it's us and it's the Restaurant Association. We have some of our restaurateurs that are a part of it. And then always somebody from the community, but it's passion, just like everybody else has for the nonprofit world. It's that passion that you do. We all fully stand firm behind it. We believe in it so that it's hard work, but it's fun work and it's work that you don't mind doing.
And how far out do you really start prepping for the week, the 10-day feast that many of us enjoy and don't see behind the person behind the curtain?
We'll start in July. So we'll have our first committee meetings in July. We've been doing it long enough now that we kind of have the rhythm down to it, which is a good thing. So you're not starting from scratch every year. You've kind of got a set model that's worked for us for a long time. And of course, you go through and reevaluate everything. But we'll start meeting in July and then kick off registration for our restaurants in September. That's kind of how that works.
And do you have a limit on the number of restaurants that can participate?
No. So if you're a restaurant listening and you're still not participating, sign on up.
And is there any obligation of the restaurants? Do they have to kick in so much money or anything like that?
Yeah, it's exactly how Restaurant Week, how the donations come in. The restaurants agree to donate 10% during those days. And then that's how we receive the revenue from it. It's a 10% donation from the restaurants.
Running a big event like this, what's the greatest challenge or challenges, and how do you meet that?
That's a great question. I think simply for this one, the biggest challenge is probably a little bit that's out of our control, right? If you think about the time of year we do it, weather can be a challenge. The Chiefs, which we all want to see them go to the playoffs and the Super Bowl, but we've had a year where it's fallen over Restaurant Week, so that decreases a little bit of that participation. And those things are out of our control, and we just have to know going into it that we can only control, what we plan and kind of go from there. But once again, the Kansas City community is just amazing, and they've come through every year for us.
And when I go out and dine, as I already have a reservation somewhere where you've been trying to go for a long time, is there information like on the table to learn about someone like Cornerstones of Care? How do I, the diner, get to really know that this wonderful meal I'm enjoying is helping these three entities?
Yeah, so several different ways. So when we're speaking of websites, you can go to kcrestaurantweek.com. And that's going to list all the restaurants. We also have an app, and then there's information on the charity, of course, both of those ways. And then at the bottom of the menus for a lot of the restaurants, they will also put who the donations go to. That way the individual knows where their money is going.
So I want to make sure everybody catches the right websites for this. So for Restaurant Week itself, it's kcrestaurantweek.com.
Correct.
And Cornerstones is cornerstonesofcare.org.
That's correct.
Or Google.
Or Google.
Right.
We should be the first one.
That's right. Meredith, wondering if any of the kiddos that have been in this program dealing with food, are they going to get an opportunity maybe to go dine somewhere?
I hope so. Most of our kiddos are connected with a case manager. We've got our Build Tribe director who is well connected in the Kansas City philanthropic community, but also the culinary community as well. And so we try to get our kiddos out, whether they're preparing and building some of those items for delivery for a business or experiencing and dining around places. They've done that before. So we definitely encourage our staff to support the kiddos to get a feeling and a kind of a user experience of what's possible with what they start and create at our Gillis and Ozanam campus. So we definitely encourage and will encourage that for this week as well.
Well, I thank you both so much for sharing about this really neat recipe for success. We'll stay with all the food references, right?
Yeah.
And we wish you the best of luck. And I know it will be deliciously successful. So how was that?
Mm-hmm. Love it.
Love it.
That's great.
Thank you for joining us for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by a nonprofit, Charitable Communications. This KC Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation. If you'd like to be a guest on KC Cares, please visit our website, kccaresonline.org, and spread the love. You'll find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio and on Instagram at KC Cares Online. And don't forget, you can catch us Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on ESPN 1510 AM and 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us on KC Cares.